Okay. To start over again, we're having some technology issues. My name is Michael Cunningham, World Affairs Council of Austin and Global Scholars Diploma Program, and also at Del Valle High School. And I'm glad to invite you to learn a little bit more about our conference. These are some remarks that we've heard throughout the these are some remarks that we heard throughout the conference, and try to be mindful. We're going to try to explain how we're going to go about this next year and how people can be involved. So this is very important. Anytime you have a conference or get together to show or demonstrate different things, that's really helpful. But this is like education itself. It's a non-ending process. You just don't stop when the day's over. You keep on learning. So when this conference is done, we're also going to look at some different things for next year. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start. Okay, this year we're really happy to present. We have 9 different curriculum units, so we'll probably modify it, make it 10, and we'll tell you more about that in a second. But we have 9 different curriculum units that you can use in your classroom. It could be some interactive like what we're doing today, and some are actually asynchronous. Global Scholars Diploma Program, World Affairs Council of Austin, 9 curriculum unit program guide. We are a project-based learning system possessing the knowledge, skills, and mindset to thrive in our global society is no longer an optional component for responsible citizens. The Global Scholars Diploma Program is a global education for all program that thrives on inclusivity, equality, and access for all. The program develops globally competent students with knowledge, skills, and a mindset necessary for leadership, citizenship, and careers in interconnected global societies and partnerships with schools all around the world. The World Affairs Council of Austin champions the Global Scholar Diploma Program through innovative, interactive, and experimental approaches, global community partnerships, and collaborating businesses, government, NGO, and academic leaders. Our 9 curriculum units that we're going to go through today in pretty good detail. 1 is the Moot Courts. 2 is the Peace Day Challenge. 3 is the ICC Moot Courts. 4 is the League of Nations Global Debates. 5 is the International Moot Courts. 6 is Food for Thought. 7 is Model Diplomacy. 8 are Genocide Units. And 9 are Weekly Current Debates. What's new for the 21-22 school year? There are 2 ways to participate now. We have live through Zoom video conferencing like we're doing right now. And we have asynchronous through 2 different formats, one through Kalo platform and one through Flipgrid. How does Kalo work? Okay, Kalo is a relatively new platform, but it is very, very interesting. But Kalo discussions and debates are clearly visualized as a tree of pro and con arguments. Units are going to have monthly debates, weekly debates, ICC moot courts, and model diplomacy. The features can be in English, it can be in other languages, Spanish, or if we had enough, Romanian or Turkish or Russian or anything. You can do this without. You can do this asynchronously. So in other words, if you want to do this in the morning and your partner school is in the United States or somewhere halfway across the world, they can do it in their afternoon and you could have it by next morning again. It's easy to use and engages everyone. There's a limit to 500 words that you can put on, so kids will learn how to write and think very compactly or condensedly, and they'll be able to put their thoughts out, and then they'll get feedback with other people. So this is a very exciting program. Flipgrid, if you're not familiar with it, this is really kind of a fun deal. I was able to give a interactive Flipgrid professional development the other day. It's a lot of fun. Special pages for each unit will allow teachers to post their students' work. Food for thought. It's a monthly presentation, 10-minute limit on different foods. We're going to go through that in a moment. Monthly debates. Each speech will have a 10-minute time limit. Weekly debates. Again, each speech will have a 10-minute time limit. ICC moot courts. You go by each point of error. You have 10 minutes. That'd be really good. Moot courts, again, 10 minutes point of error would be very good. Genocide units. We're doing some for the peace days, so that's what we're going to try to do for them. And it'll be a 10-minute presentation. And model diplomacy. Model diplomacy is you take a topic, everybody looks from their own perspective, and they represent their own country. It's kind of like a mini model UN. It's really kind of fun. And again, they would give their thoughts. Zoom conferencing for live events. Live events include food for thought monthly, monthly debates, live or asynchronous, weekly debates, live or asynchronous, ICC moot courts, live or asynchronous, moot courts, live or asynchronous, genocide units, live or asynchronous, model diplomacy, live or asynchronous, and mock trials, which will work out better live. What you must do to receive your Global Scholar Diploma. Students completing the program will obtain certificates in global affairs from the World Affairs Council of Austin. Certificate requirements include students must complete 6 courses across 3 different disciplines. So 6 of those units they have to be able to complete. Students must demonstrate a skill in foreign language. Of course, they're doing it with English because that's going to be a foreign language for them. Students must participate in at least 3 globally focused extracurricular activities. Students must complete a minimum of 20 hours of focused service learning, and students must complete a capstone research project. World Affairs Council of Austin, just a little thing. Our first unit, moot courts, World Affairs Council. We have Kalo unit, Zoom, and Flipgrid. Moot court objective is 2 teams and 2 students will participate in appeals court competition using the United States case. They will have 30 minutes to present their case. A petitioner will use 3 to 5 minutes of their time for rebuttal. The case will be released in September of each year. The competition will take place over Zoom in December. Each case will be closed and the materials necessary will be given to the students. We'll have professional development if you need it to explain. How it works for Kalo. The appellant would have the first point of error, then the respondent would have their first point of error. The appellant would have their second point of error, and then the respondent would answer it, and then the appellant would have their rebuttal. Unit number 1, moot courts, what is it all about? The appellate competition involves presentation of a fictitious case to appellate court. The appellate competition greatly differs from a trial case, which the public is much more familiar with. What is an appeal? Appeal is an integral part of our legal system. Following the trial, a losing party can challenge the result in the higher court, normally on constitutional grounds. So what this is that students all around the world, in this particular one, will learn more about United States laws. And I'll send this out to you, but what you'll have is I actually have a sample case that we're going to look at. I'll press the link right now and you can see it'll go to and this is a case of a healing father, Don Colson, summer case that was used last summer. So that's a pretty good aspect. You'll see that the case is pretty involved, but it'll be a lot of fun for the kids to do. We'll have a real one. These are some pictures taken at our Texas Supreme Court when we were able to actually several years ago go back, and the kids are actually very involved. But our idea is we're taking the courtroom right to your classroom. Benefits of moot court. Opportunities to gain experience in appellate advocacy are difficult to come by for both lawyers and law school, let alone high school students. Global Scholar Diploma provides high school students with a valuable opportunity to hone their written and oral skills in a competitive field. This is kind of neat because all law schools here in the United States will have a moot court. Every attorney that will go through a law school will eventually have to argue, at least inside the classroom, if not for competition purposes, appellate law. Here's a video that you can watch later, and it's actually talking about a case that they did for Harlan in 2015. Experiences that you would get competition type experiences, and you wouldn't have to even leave your classroom. Okay, this is kind of fascinating. This is a student. Yeah, that gentleman graduated in 2015, but excuse me a second. Okay, we're going to go to the next one. Okay, remember, courts will run a new case every September, a new competition every December. Unit 2, this is something we're really proud of. We're working with the peace, International Peace Organization in Washington, D.C. And each year they come out with a National Peace Day challenge. And that's what we're going to try to do. Okay, each school will participate in the annual September 21st Peace Day Challenge. A school will post their products. Now you can make PowerPoints, you can do videos and stuff like that, and we'll put on these different pages. Once activity, it's a once a year activity. Students will be creative and post their social media Flipgrid, and it'll get on to national and international websites. And we have this year, we are going to do some different challenges for genocide, which is a big theme in concern with the peace people. Peace Day Challenge, genocide of the Uyghurs, a group of Muslim Chinese. I think there's almost over 1 million people that are in detainment camps in northwestern China. The Balkan genocides, back of the 1990s. Okay, welcome, Ben. The Armenian Genocide Peace Day Challenge and the Circassian Genocide. The Armenian Genocide is something I'm very interested in. About 1.5 million people were killed beginning April 24th, 1915. And the Circassian Genocide is not really well known around the world, but this is a group of people where they lived in the northeastern part of the Baltic Sea, and they were Muslims that were removed from Russia and put back into Ottomans or killed. So you have 4 different groups of people. One is taking place right now. One took place about 25, 30 years ago. One took place 100 years ago, and one took place about 150 years ago. So you can see that genocide and stuff is an ongoing type of process. So Peace Day would try to do that. Okay, Peace Day Challenge, you go there, you talk about learning, act, share, United States Institute of Peace. And there are some people. One day, one unit, one world, one peace, September 21st. With a future at stake, you're up for this challenge, and that's where we need you. Unit number 3 is ICC Moot Courts. Again, we have Kalo, Zoom, and Flipgrid. And Moot Court would be teams of 2 students will participate in a Moot Court competition using the ICC case. How does it work for Kalo? And again, it worked the same way as we mentioned before. You have first point of error, second point of error, rebuttal, first point of error, and second point of error. International Criminal Court is a good example, a sitting court where we have 2 advocates going to represent, and they are appealing. And what happens is that we would bring people to trial for war crimes or for genocide. And these are the cases that are involved during that time. I think we have 10 different cases so you can look at. And here's our senator from that had given us a little thing so you can listen. Okay, and ICC moot court cases, and then they actually have links to them. The Stalin mock trial for the Holodomor, Stalin, a University of North Texas information. Students put historical figures. There's all kinds of historical figures you can look at. Stalin Project, Ukraine famine, genocide, eyewitness accounts, and more information on genocides. And here's a sample that you can look at later for ICC versus Joseph Stalin. And there, ICC versus Harry Truman for dropping the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And again, it was the same things that you can look at back there. This gives people a pretty good perspective in trying to look at 2 points of view all throughout history. And here we have 2 different examples. One was United States versus Iran with the ICC, and then one United States versus Australia. And what's really interesting, that most of the people in that Australian group were descendants of Japanese people that had lived in Hiroshima. Okay, rules for the cases. Each one will have 15 minutes on the case. Okay, and there you can actually see live pictures of United States and Canada participating. cases covered, and we looked through that again. Here's a picture of some people with a former, before he retired, federal judge. Okay, Unit 4, League of Nations debate. League of Nations debates, we have different topics each month. We'll start in February with doctor-assisted suicides, and then it goes to online education and down to December. And League of Nations debate based on the 14 points of Woodrow Wilson when he gave a speech on January the 8th of 1918 in front of Congress. Of course, the League of Nations did develop, but the United States did not belong to it. These are the times and the speeches, and you can actually see Ben there with some students. And this is really kind of fascinating. And this is one of the things I want to kind of show you, that we can do these asynchronously now. And this is one of the first ones with Flipgrid, and it'll be critical race theory debate. Critical race theory is a large and it would go, I'm not doing this right, so I'll just go back. You flip it to here, and it will go to put in your email, and it will go to your CRT debate, and you record. Okay. International moot courts. These are examples again, showing you examples so everyone have it. And we have quite a few examples over the period of years. We also have a lot of energy debates, which is probably still come about with prices of oil and everything going up. Unit 5, international moot courts and mock trials. And that's what we're doing this week, is we're doing that moot court, Peter de Jager. And we're also doing Australian mock trials and Ontario bail hearing cases, Ontario moot court. And you'll see that. And then finally, we'll do a labor court. A year from now, we're actually going to do the trial court for this one. Okay, how does it work for Kalo? Again, same way. And this is a little commercial about our first mock trial that we started in 2009. And it was really kind of special because one of the students that participated in this first mock trial is now an attorney, and he was going to be our celebrity judge this year, but he gave a really interesting talk on the first day. South Australian rules for mock trials, so students will be able to learn from different places, South Australia. And this is, we have a live judge in Australia, and you have a school in Australia and a school in the United States, and they were recording it. And this particular lady also served with one of the assistant attorneys on the O.J. Simpson case. And these are some samples again you could look at later, playing different parts of mock trials. Now, this is one that took place last year, and we'll have to probably take another one that will take place again in this next month, because they're down with COVID. They were going to participate this week. And you can see that a classroom can be easily turned into a courtroom. And in this case, they're arguing against schools in Taiwan and arguing schools in Vietnam. South Africa, the one we just went through, this is a very interesting case because there's a lot of, it combines critical race theory, it combines just regular affirmative action, it combines a lot of things. And the laws in South Africa are such that it's real. One doesn't really understand until you actually start seeing what's happening. And Ben's going to talk about that in just a moment. The applicant side, it talks about what you should try to do for race and racism. The respondent side, I think the respondent side is much easier on here because it makes sense that the gentleman was probably discriminated against. The problem evolves down to this: just because a person is wrong does not necessarily automatically mean that they are going to get their quote justice. you have to be able to prove something. And you cannot just throw innuendos. You cannot just throw things together. You have to have actual facts. And sometimes, because of the nature of discrimination, you cannot really have facts. You can have assumptions. You can have a lot of things, but discrimination is so rampant in society, and discrimination is so subtle, and it's very difficult to have a body of evidence that would equal to something that you would have to be able to prove in court. Okay, majority opinion here, we have it down there. A minority opinion, have it down there. Here's arguments that they have, our first and second one, and you can take a look at what the kids did in it. And here's an example of about a couple years back. Here's another example a couple years back. Here's a really nice example. This is what we did deal with, and you see Sean a long time ago. The person Sean was working with, Lisa, developed cancer. She was the one that did the first one with us in 2009, and she passed away, had some young children. So we did a memorial, not memorial, but an international moot court, named it after her, and it was kind of fun. And here you see people from Iran and arguing. Our food for thought has been very successful. And this year, we're really excited because we're doing food for thought also on Flipgrid. So what I've done is I made all 12 months or 10 months out. So I have September, October. So September is bread. Students can go ahead and make up their presentations and put it on here asynchronously, or they can also present it to it live. So we've had some very success. This would be our 22nd year of doing it, the year coming up. And you can see here's some pictures of Iran, Afghanistan, Turkey, Bulgaria. Here you see some presentations from Taiwan. Taiwan's been pretty much doing it ever since. But it started out as a project we were doing because so many, the United States has really changed in the last several years when it comes to modifying career and tech programs. In the early 2000s, when we first started, in the very early 2000s, I think it was in the year 2000 actually, the schools in Nebraska were actually teaching home economics. That's what they called it. And they would have a home economics teacher at one site, and then maybe 200 miles away would be her other school. And they were teaching through distance learning at that time. When I heard about that, I said, well, why don't we try to band together and get several sites in Nebraska and some in Texas, and we could talk about food. And that's how it got started. Here you can see some really neat, I think this was either Turkey or that was doing this like kebabs. And here are some food for thoughts throughout the years. Here's a one day a year Ben knows, I think Ben knows all these people. This is one we did when we did rice. And this is so crazy. We took one a couple years ago, I think this is 2018, 19. We took a food, and then we went all around the world with it. So we took rice, like rice what they ate in Korea, rice what they ate in Taiwan, rice what they ate in China, rice what they ate in India, and we took rice, and everybody had different recipes for rice. It was really fantastic when you look at it. And this is Turkey, and that is again just a picture food. Okay, and then you can see they actually will talk. These are moon cakes. It's a celebratory practice, and this is Taiwan. And there we have Iran and myself and Taiwan, and then rice in Taiwan. She is from Turkey. And this is really kind of neat. Every Christmas, we try to have School 1357 from Russia. And they bring in and they talk about Father Christmas and his daughter. It's basically like we say Santa Claus, and have dancing and have customs Christmas for Russia. It's really kind of cute. I'd strongly suggest you look at it. And here we see foods. We have a lot of people here who love the combination. We have tremendous amount of different influences here in Texas. So we talk a little bit about home food here in Texas. Okay, and we go, and then mild diplomacy. And in mild diplomacy, again, all three platforms. We talked a little bit about, these are the topics we're going to be doing. In Kalo, again, works the same way. You just get a speech for each. And you have different roles. You have the president, and then everybody gives a speech. And then finally, the president or the prime minister will give a speech. And we have time. We also have it on Flipgrid. Here's two samples right here that you could actually go to and look at. And here's examples of India and Iran, Russia 1357, and there we did one with Argentina, Lebanon and Del Valle, US and Turkey, Russia again, and the United States and Afghanistan. And here we go. This was probably our one of our most favorite. This happened a couple years ago, but we had a school from Turkey that went out to the refugee camps in Turkey, and we had a school that went out from the Lebanese refugees camps in Lebanon. We had a school that went from Jordan, and they went out and talked to actual Syrian refugees. And oh my gosh, it was enough to really make you really be thankful for everything you had. These poor people had absolutely nothing, living in really, really bad conditions. They were still attending school. That was kind of neat. They were living in tents, and this is like 3 years ago, and it's probably still the same way, because I know the country of Lebanon is approaching almost as many refugees in Lebanon as there are citizens in Lebanon. Okay, the last one I'm going to go. Last two I'm going to go by real fast. The Genocide Projects. I just really trying to tell you a little bit about. We have genocide, Holodomor, Holocaust, Armenian genocide, Uyghurs, you name it, and we have it all through here. And then the last one we're going to talk about today would be the weekly debates. And again, I think I kind of highlight some of that, but this will give you a pretty good idea of what to do. I'll send this out on the screen share for everyone to see, so you can actually go through and open up and look at these yourself. Now, at this time, I'd like to have Ben talk a little bit. And Ben, we want, before you joined us, we were going to try to summarize some of the stuff that we had gone through this week. I was showing Lydia a little bit about some of the projects and stuff that we're about to do, for this next year coming up. And could you kind of explain what the World Affairs Council is, what Global Scholars Diploma is, and what people can learn by doing stuff like this?
Yes, thank you very much, Michael. So the World Affairs Council, we're a nonprofit organization, educational focused, and of course we have other programs, cultural programs, and global trade initiatives, but the educational portion is what we're most interested in discussing here today. So what we've done with our educational programs is focused on high school level students and enable them through our Global Scholars Diploma the opportunity to interact and move beyond theoretical types of educational projects and actually engage and develop their own educational programming with assistance from their peers in other nations. So it's a really comprehensive type of program, which Michael just outlined several of the different units involved in the educational program. And as well, we have a academic World Quest competition that takes place every year for U.S. focused high school students. And that competition is based on 10 different topic areas that the students learn, from current events to critical topics of the day, including, for instance, over the years, there have been initiatives on peace, and I know Michael talked about the Peace Day initiatives that kind of complement some of the training that's already involved in the whole Global Scholar Diploma program. So we're really pleased to have had interactions with several different years worth of students going through the program and having their impact explained to us, but also personally having the opportunity to watch several of the students grow in their educational experience and then eventually graduate high school and move on to the college level. So I've had that opportunity to see and interact with several of these young people on a personal and professional basis, and really been impressed by the skills and the knowledge that the students have exhibited from participating in the Global Scholars Diploma program. So we're looking forward to several more years. We're really appreciative of all the work that Mike, Del Valle School District has done to advance these particular projects and finding new partners like CALO, as well as other organizations to work with and help the students on their journey.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben. And maybe we can talk a little bit and try to include Lydia here. She's from Romania. Other people are going to see this taped, I guess. And I think they're having a power outage in South Africa. That's why we're not being able to be joined by Adrian today. And we'll start out Monday, I guess, this week. And we're talking about racism this week. And racism, we had a really dynamic speech from Roy Sue. And Roy Sue's an attorney in Taipei now, but he started out in high school just doing this when we were doing it, not with the World Affairs Council, but we were doing it, similar type of programs. And he was explaining about how it really changed his life. And then I know Ben's worked with several students that I've had, Freddie, and he knows Brissa. And then Brissa graduated from college just about a week or so ago, a week ago today, I guess it was. And she graduated in 2 years, and she's going to go to law school. Freddie will graduate from college in 3 years next year, and he'll go to law school. So, you know, a lot of times this really makes a very marked opportunity for every student, you know, and we're talking about students that are able to meet each other or talk to each other and may end up becoming future leaders. If I know Freddie as much as Ben knows Freddie and stuff, I've never seen anybody who can meet people that he knows people so well that he's the type of person that could end up in politics one day or could end up, you know, anything like that. And just being able to know people all around the world is something so superior than what we've been doing. Because if you just look at textbooks don't really educate you too terribly much. And you can see with pandemic, if we're looking at textbooks, we're in deep trouble. Today, we could say if we did everything live Zoom conferencing, that's great. But again, even with power shortages, outages, that's not even stable. So we're really looking at hybrid methods of trying to teach. So this year, we're going to try to keep the 9 things and actually going to add a 10th one. The 10th one would be to actually try to, I think we got challenged by Adrian the other day to actually continue on with this stuff. So in other words, we need to take what we learn and then try to apply it to, petition people for change or whatever. When you see something, it's not just good enough just to say, oh, that's bad. It's actually, you want to try to do something about it. So our 10th unit will be kind of more activism of some sort. And activism would be, it may be community-wide, it may be, maybe regional-wide, or it may be international-wide. But we want people to become active citizens in their own communities. We want them to change, the future of where they're at. Whether it would be environmental change, or it could be academic change. It could be trying to have some of these students run for school boards or whatever that they are talking about, or local politics. It's enough to say, well, all these people are corrupt. It's a whole lot different to say, okay, all these people are corrupt. Let's go out there and try to do something about it. So we're just not going to try to talk the talk. We're trying to get people to actually start walking, walk the walk, or whatever you want to say. I want to try to, Ben might want to give a reflection on the moot court that we had with Canada. The situation is kind of strange, because when you take yourself and put yourself in somebody else's shoes to see what, and you don't ever get to see everything. You don't really get to live that experience. And Adrian lives that experience every single day. It's very difficult to actually see how bad some of this situation has actually come. Ben, what did you gain from listening to the moot court the other day with the DeJager case?
Well, I definitely want to acknowledge and congratulate all of the students, really, for their hard work and intelligent arguments. They were very impressive. I was really pleased to hear how the students were able to lay out their arguments and then go back and touch upon points that they felt were the most important, to always remind the judges of the law that applies to the particular situation, whether they were pro or con on the and depending on which side of the argument they were on. So it was really refreshing to hear from these young future leaders talk about issues that are of extreme importance to us, not only in South Africa, but also here in the United States of America and in other nations around the world, as we find ourselves more and more moving away from the ideals of Reverend Martin Luther King and President Nelson Mandela, as far as having a colorblind society, and focusing on the merits and skills of an individual and not focusing on race. So it's a really important concept that I think a lot of the students have a stronger appreciation for after this exercise. And I also want to acknowledge and thank the fantastic speakers that we've had over the past several days that have come and just helped us to further understand the topics and the concepts that we have discussed and explored further over these past several days.
Yeah, we had a professor from a college that came and talked about history, genocide in Armenia. We had Father Tadios come and talk on Wednesday about the Armenian genocide. And that was really interesting, because not only is he Armenian, but his father was actually alive, and he was like 6 or 7 years old during the genocide. So he had to interview his father for in 1980, he interviewed his father for like 3 hours. And the first time his father ever talked about it. And he has all the details and stuff. And it's really amazing. And the father didn't really want to do it, because they said for all the years until then, he never even mentioned anything about it, because he came out and Father Tadios will explain. He came out and he said he didn't really want to talk about it. I guess it was so horrific that, and then the thing is that keep on going on. Unless you want to change something, this continues, whether it could be, you're going to be arguing about it took place somewhere else. Well, it didn't really take place somewhere else. And we don't really know how involved the Americans were at the end of it. And I can get really deep into that stuff from a historical perspective. But, Woodrow Wilson, for any of his problems that he may have had, this is what's really fascinating to me. I'll just go on a tangent. I'm sorry. But on January 1st of 1919, if they had Las Vegas at the time, which Las Vegas was existed, but was not a gambling place. But if they had a book, odds of presidential odds, that people would have said it would have been a third term for Woodrow Wilson against a third term for Teddy Roosevelt. On January the 6th, in the early morning hours, Teddy Roosevelt dies. So that takes Teddy Roosevelt out. It kind of throws Republicans up for not having a whole lot of people. On October the 2nd of that same year, Woodrow Wilson has a stroke that kind of takes him out. And what we got left were a bunch of politicians that decide that they would rather be isolationists and go back and forget whatever happened to anybody else. Well, Woodrow Wilson, when he came out on his 14 points, his 12th point was on what was going to happen with the Ottoman Empire. And he envisioned on January the 8th, 1918, and he gave this in Congress. And this is probably one of the greatest speeches. We listen to speeches, and I don't know, I've written a couple things about this just recently, but we've listened to speeches, and we think about, I had a dream speech with the 100th anniversary Emancipation Proclamation, ask not what your country can do for you, the inauguration of John F. Kennedy. But probably one of the greatest ones actually might have been this Woodrow Wilson's 14 points. Woodrow Wilson was probably one of the more dynamic, forward-thinking people when it came to how we actually handle other things, because he tried to include other people's thoughts into the process. He wasn't trying to say what was best for America. He was trying to say what was best for the world. And it's really kind of a pleasing thing to find out that the World Affairs Council was based on these 14 points. Even though the United States decided to pull away from that, the ideas are relatively sound. If we had done that 100 years ago, we may not be in the shape we are today in many different areas. And you can see this in our diplomacy. You can see this in everything else. So I think the ideals that Wilson expounded upon would be much benefited. It was really kind of interesting to note that he had an independent country for Kurdistan. Kurdistan is the largest group of people without a country today. That's 107 years since his speech, I guess, or no, 103 years since the speech. He would add a big country for Armenia, and Turkey would have been kind of carved up, which is kind of strange. Very, very seldom do you ever get to see or hear this from a regular history standpoint. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to show people exactly how we got to where we're at. And this is very important. And I think that students get very involved in it. And I've learned this from, we're talking about racism, because racism is something that's very important. It's very topical here in the States. We're having a lot of discussions. In fact, I think the House and Senate just passed a bill here in Texas about, at least I know the House did, passed a bill about not being able to teach something like this. We need to discuss it. And we shouldn't be afraid for students to make up their own mind. I mean, literally speaking, we should have enough faith in our students, if you present the facts, that should be how they make up their mind. They shouldn't just be given one side or another. They should be able to make up the facts, because that's what education is all about, is learning. And then you have to you have to trust. Think about it like you put training wheels on the bicycle for your child, but eventually you have to take those training wheels off, and you trust that that child can actually ride the bike. They may get hurt or whatever, but you get up and you go on. Well, we have to kind of take these training wheels off our education and let the people actually learn. Ben, what do you think about that? You think that's important or no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of the educational process should be that you have facts that you look at and engage in critical thinking, and eventually, make a decision based on true facts that are presented to you. So it's important, and it's what guided the U.S. educational system for centuries. So why should we move away from that and now uh, move toward an indoctrination of students really at the high school and college levels, which is very, very destructive, and it does not bode well for our society. So we need to have critical thinking. We need to have all the facts presented to the students. Yeah, it's difficult because you have a very limited time when you can instruct young minds. But with the capabilities of the current technology and the information superhighway, we used to call it, the World Wide Web, it's enables students to find information and facts on their own, and it has done a tremendous good. And sometimes there are things that you don't want to expose students to, but unfortunately they're out there. And so, it enables them to make decisions on their own. And yes, it's very important that we trust these young minds and their abilities to make sense of all the information that's out there.
Yeah. Before we leave today, I think when you look back at trying to judge success or something of a project, we started this project and we wanted to do it last year, but the pandemic kind of did us in. Little do we know the pandemic would continue and into this year and kind of do us in again a little bit, or power shortages or whatever. But when you first heard about it last year and thinking about it, how do you think this will impact, or how do you think this could potentially impact students by just looking at race critically, or that? How do you think this effort would translate to other things?
One thing in society that we a few individuals have been talking about is how this next generation of young people are being so disconnected from social interaction. A lot more use of text and mobile applications on their telephone, as opposed to making a phone call and talking to somebody, or speaking to somebody when they're in the same presence of other live human beings in a room, and they were just texting back and forth or on an application back and forth with each other. Back in the day when I was going to school, we would pass handwritten notes to each other, and you'd have to be very sly about how you were doing that, make sure the teacher's back was turned, and you'd pass notes up through friends. But again, that's social interaction with people that you might not have as a friend personally, that you're passing a note through that person onto the intended recipient of your note. So this pandemic has worsened the situation, as far as now you're not even in the same room with the people that you're communicating with, and it's just a face on a screen. And changes in the school year, you come in interaction with more strangers and learn how to interact with them by facial expressions, etc. And the whole masking situation has made it even more difficult for young people to understand facial cues in conversations with people that they may or may not know.
Yeah.
And so this has been really detrimental for the development, I think, of our youth.
Yeah, and especially like text messaging and stuff, it's very different. There's no nonverbals you can see, so you can't tell if somebody's being sarcastic, kidding, or they'll put emojis or something up because that ends up becoming nonverbal. But and today's society, so many people text instead of talking. I've actually seen people in the same room text each other instead of talk to each other. So this talking at somebody and being able to think is really important. I think it's a skill that you're not going to be elected politician if you just text everybody. Although I guess Trump was pretty good about twittering and stuff, but you know what I'm saying. He also was a good speaker. The problem is going to be in the future. We have to develop all these skills for these students, and this could help do it. Whether you do asynchronously through Flipgrid, or you could do it through Kalo would be very similar to texting, but at least you get some feedback. And then Zoom, of course, is like we're doing here. We had a program in which we're going to try to show you some videos, and I will try to just cut the videos and add it to the end here. You're going to see highlights from Father Tadios, from Professor Anna, and from Roy's speeches. And we'll just do that later because we're having some difficulty when we cut it and put it in there for the sound not to work so well. So that will happen. But we did want to continue this today. Adrian wanted me to share with you how important this was. He's writing a book about this whole event. He's actually living in an area in which has radically changed. And one of the things I can tell you is if you live long enough, things will change. And if you don't believe me, I mean, no matter where you're at, I know, and Lydia probably would tell you, it wasn't that terribly long ago that Romania and being able to do stuff like this would not have been possible before the fall, of the Iron Curtain. And then before that, Romania was entangled with the Ottoman Empire for a long period of time. Things don't ever remain constant. If we think that we have to be very vigilant about our freedom and protect our freedoms, because if you don't, you'll turn around and you'll end up losing them. And this happens to people all throughout history. And the United States, I think, is at a point with even with a lot of our students nowadays. This is like crazy, but Lydia might could appreciate this. I think that many of our students actually think communism was a very good form of government. We learn, and we have been told, communism, basically socialism, was a very good form of government. And we don't listen to about 100 million people who were killed, or all this other kind of stuff that happened. So one of the things we're trying to show here is that as we expand to different places, I'd like for us, to give back and explain some of the histories with other countries too, so they could actually tell our students and say, okay, the Armenian genocide doesn't really matter so much here unless you're Armenian or Turkish or something to that effect, and you still have things. But if you lived in Armenia, it was really big. If the Circassian genocide, same type of thing happens. The Uyghurs in northwestern China, horrible situation right now. I mean, literally speaking, you could look at these camps where people are living in. Very, very bad type of a situation. And we're not that far away, no matter where we're at in any country. So we can bond together. We can learn from each other. We have a really good program this year to do. We really appreciate everything that Ben's done and Mortada's done for the World Affairs Council. And we really appreciate the students that participated this week. We had Peel School from Canada. We had David Suzuki School from Canada. We had some students from Del Valle High School in Texas. We had people from about 15 of our countries that were tuned in at one time or another listening. And we'll have some more watching this today. I'd like to thank everybody Personal thank, a shout out to Ben. I really appreciate all his support and help. We're really trying to bring a very important thing here to the world. And I think that Ben, through his expert guidance, is really doing a very good job. And I really appreciate it. So thank you so much, Lydia. Thank you so much, Ben. And I'll stop recording. And
Well, Michael,